Welcome to day 7 of 60 Days to Automate Challenge. And today we're going to be going over how to automate your calendar. So just a quick recap, last 5 days, we set up our automation tools. And yesterday we automated our email. We went through and we set up how to create automatic replies with a draft, how to organize attachments, and how to create labels inside of different platforms, Google and Microsoft. And yes, sure that the audio was running. All right. So today, what are we going to be going over? We're going to be going over automating your calendar. We're going to learn some of the benefits of what you want to automate with your calendar, how this can really help free up some of your time and help with some of those, help you plan your week a little bit better. So our agenda, we're going to go over how you can check for availability, how to summarize your different weekly events, and how to create, eventually, a smart calendar assistant. So some use cases that we're going to be going over, just being able to quickly determine your calendar without having to go in there. We're going to set up a Sidekick that basically allows us to eventually go in there and have people or other AI agents be able to check availability. We're going to set up a quick little automation to be able to check for future use. We're also going to set up one that kind of summarizes, gives you a full overview or what you have planned so you can use it in planning. And then also too, we're going to talk about how we can create standardized agendas and summaries for just more productive meetings. And if you stick around to the end, I'll also show how we can do automated follow-up meetings or automated emails in your draft box. So taking what we learned yesterday with creating automated drafts and having that ready in your draft inbox right after the meeting. So first thing, we're going to do summarizing the week. So let's jump right in. Sorry about that, looked like the stream was frozen. Through loud and clear. All right, so let's jump to N8N. So what we're first going to do is we're going to set up a automation that will summarize, we'll first check your availability. That's the first thing. So what do we have to do to get it to set up? So if we remember from yesterday, we had to go in and give it Google Drive permission. Well, today we're also going to have to do the same thing. We're going to go in here and we're going to have to add the credentials for calendar. So we're going to say the Google Calendar OAuth to API. So we go here and we say continue. Now when I say I want to sign in with Google, I can sign in. And this one, actually, I can just go in and export it. Go ahead and give it access to this demo account. And it is connected. That one's a lot easier than the email. So what we have now is we can now check the calendar. So how do we do that? Let's go in. Let's go ahead and save this one. We're going to call this one day 7 summer or check availability. Actually, day 7 automating. So I'm going to keep these all in the same one because that's one of the things I do like about this is being able to have multiple triggers and multiple inputs, kind of keeping them organized, especially when you start getting into really big automation. All right, so what we're going to do here is we're going to first start by getting our calendar. So first we need a trigger. So do we want to trigger it manually? So in this case, we're going to trigger it here. Right now, we're kind of the foundations for some basic automations. In day 10, we're going to see how you can kind of this all together with Answer AI to be able to use these automations in a sidekick, agentic, kind of chief sidekick way. So we'll go here and we're going to choose this one for right now. And what we want to do is look for the calendar. So we're going to go here and we're going to say Google Calendar and we're going to say get availability in a calendar. So here we have our calendar. We've already have this connected and the resource is we want to get the calendar and there's an operation here, availability. So here it's going to get and it'll show all the different ones, calendars that you have associated with that credential. So I'm going to choose this one. Then the next thing you have are start date and a start time. So here we go is 1, and we're going to go for between 10/1, or let's say this week, the 28th through the 1st. Okay. If I test this, I'm available. There's a couple of interesting points here. First off is that when working with dates, we'll go over how you can kind of, from dates and things like that. There's a little bit of date math on both these systems that I'll go over that is important to understand when working with dates, which is part of calendar automation. So first off, what this is checking is this person available from October 28th until November 1st? So if I go here, see if that works. All right, so as you can see, brand new account, have a completely free calendar. I wish my calendar looks like this. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put an event here. I'm going to say call with customer. Now it's going to be 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. And I'm just going to put that one on there, and I'm going to put one as well. Later, I'm going to say 101 with, and we're going to save that one. And let's go ahead and add one for here. And we're going to say Halloween party. Okay. Now I have 3 events that are in here that we can see that should now be, up. So now when we go back here and we run this, false. So what does that mean? It's just giving you a true or false. Is this person available between this time and time? So this is very important tip number 1, is that when working with dates and this availability, you're looking for a time from this time to this time. So if I change this to, instead of the 1st, if I actually had an actual date that I was looking for and time, so the 28th between then and 0800, and I test that, I am available during that time. But if I look at, 9 a.m. and 10 a.m., wait, I think it's actually, hours, seconds, that's right. So hours, minutes, seconds. This is actually till 10. And now if I run this, but why? Well, one thing to note is, too, that when these are being on a specific time zone, it doesn't know what time zone your calendar is in. So what it says right here is this node will use the time zone set in N8, but you can overwrite this in the workflow settings. So if we go over to, where is it? Time zone, and we say select from a list, and I choose Pacific time, America, Los Angeles. Now, when I run this, I still get true. Let's take a look. All right, so we have 900 to 1000. That should start. All right, so we have October 31st. We have this. We say the option is in this time zone. What time zone is my calendar in? Is Pacific time. Okay, interesting. Let me see if it has something to do with the time. So let's go here, 0200. You come back false. Yeah, okay. Now I'm just, this is not showing up for that exact time because technically between 9 o'clock a.m. and, well, let's start there. Okay, it says false. So now if I put 10, false. So it is ahead. So how many hours ahead? That will help me debug what this is. If it's a time zone issue, I believe that theirs is an Eastern time. But it does say you can do a workflow settings. So then we'll go in and we'll check to see what they're set in settings if this doesn't work. Actually, let's do that first. Let's go back over here. Let's take a look at these settings. The time zone is default America, Los Angeles. All right, we're going to go over and we're going to check the, let's save this. We have verified that the time zone is default America, Los Angeles. Great. No. All right. Now let's go into our settings over here. What we can do is we can go in and it doesn't look like we have it. Said you could do it in there. Take a look at this again. So this node will use the same time zone set in innate in settings, but you can override this in the workflow settings, but apparently you can not. So I am seeing, let's see how far of a time zone this is off, which would be, let's say 1300 to 1400. Available true. True. That's right. All right, let's see how many you can go back. Test. So let's go forward. True. What I'm doing here is I'm trying to go through and see how big of a time change there is differential between the two. False. Okay, so it looks like, so it says that it's false there. So then now let's see, I think it's at 5, so that would be a 8-hour time zone change. So that's at Greenwich. So this is actually going to be just regular standard time, I believe. Yeah, if I have my time zones correctly. I don't know, they're getting ready to change too. So let's see, 1659. I think that will say, so 1600. So let's say all right, so we've found that it's 1600. So 9. So in order to do this, and this is one setting that I do, especially if you're working with people overseas, is kind of in here and set your secondary time zone. In this case, I'm going to do that to this just to make it a little bit easier for this testing. I don't know why it's not working in 8in, but time zones, if you're a developer, you know what I'm talking about. If you've ever developed for, yeah, not fun. So we're going to try this. Let's believe it's just at 0. So 9 would be 4 p.m. with 1800. Yep. So basically, we're going to be putting all of our times in Greenwich, which are basically 0 offset. It's like England. We're the center of the world. But anyway, now we know our time zone offset. Like I said, this should have worked in here, but we at least now know. So now if we do, now we can get our availability. But that's just one way to get our availability. The other way is to go over, we can actually get mini events. So for instance, if you wanted to just see if someone was available between this time, this would be where you'd want to really availability. It's a little off, but it kind of shows both time zone and also what you need to do to, if you had a specific date. So for instance, if you had a customer support bot, or for instance, my sidekick was rebooking my dentist appointment, it would say, are you available at this time and this date? It could quickly check and say, oh, nope, very quickly. But for this next one, what we're going to be working on is we're going to work on summarizing our week. Meaning, hey, from this time to this time, what are my events? And that could be used for telling people or having agents, sidekicks tell your customers or your prospects or service bots when there is availability. So to do that, we're going to add a different one. We're going to add yet another trigger, and we're going to say trigger manually. Sorry, I guess only one manual trigger is allowed. So we're going to actually get rid of it because it's okay, but not really for our. In this case, we're going to say get mini event. In this case, we're going to connect this, and we're going to say get our event, get mini, and from the digital scale. And in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and return them all because I only have that many events, and to just see what it turns. So here we can see that we have over a little bit so you can kind of, so we're given what kind it is, an ID that we'll use later, the link to the event, when it was created, the summary, who the organizer is, the start time, the end time with the time zone, and these different event types and reminders. Now, what do you do with this? Well, what if you just wanted to come in and see what does my week look like? We can add here. Remember from last week, we can add a simple LLM that can grab all of the events. But before we send it, we're going to want to aggregate. So again, this is how you can take individual fields and instead of running one for each, create like a one item that In this case, that one item is going to be a list of all of my events and its summary and agenda. So what we're going to do here is we're going to say here is the input field name. And we're going to add a field to aggregate. We're going to say created by. We're going to add another one. And the organizer, why not? We're going to say the start time. Oh, field start time and date. We're going to do the end date and time. And so now it's created kind of everything into one item. We can see that because it says now item. Now we're going to use what we did yesterday. So open up your notes and say LLM. And then we have basic LLM chain. So here, what we're going to do is we're going to, again, from the prompt, we're going to say we're going to define this below. And we're going to create our prompt. So we're going to here, and we're going to open this up a little bit. So you are an AI assistant that has access to a user's calendar. Here is a summary of the events this week. I'm going to say events summary. Remember, you want to, it's good best practice when you are creating prompts that whatever information you're using as context. So you know who it is, telling it what you want to do. Those are instructions. This is giving context. Context is your event detail. So here we're going to pull this in here, and we're just going to say summary, the email, date, time. We're kind of putting all of these for this, and we only have a few events in this, so there's not. So what I want to say is, give the user a detailed or a summary of the week with links to their events for quick access. All right, so now this is going to, but before we do this, one little gotcha. If you run this, it'll throw an error because we have not added this, which is our chat model. We connect our account here. And we're going to use 4.0 mini to save boss. Now I go here and I hit save. And now what this is going to do is it's going to grab all my events, put it into one kind of item that I can then summarize. So that one item is the full list, individual list. Then that's going to be sent to the AI for summarization. So let's test this workflow. So it's going in there, it's grabbed the events, going through summarization, and we have, once again, here's your summary of your events for this week. All with customer events. And once again, we see this in this Markdown. I know this looks not useful right now, but when we get into when these are being used by other agents, it's going to be very important that. So this gives us a summary, but there's not really a lot of deep. And honestly, when you create events, you have different types of events. And in order to kind of ensure that your events are categorized in the right way, I like to use an automation to create events too. So there are a lot of other tools out there like Calendly. I think Gmail and Outlook now have these, but they allow you to share your calendar availability and let people book it, which is great. Sometimes they don't work as well though when you have multiple people trying to aggregate it. And one of the ways that I like to do it is, or use my Sidekick for calendar, is to have the email and be like, hey, especially when I'm working with multiple organizations, is to send off an email and say, hey, give me both your availability, or the Sidekick does, and then it deciphers them. And then when it puts the calendar onto it, I can also include an agenda and a structured and organized way to summarize my events, which will come in handy later when we start using automations for automating follow-up emails. So for instance, any calendar events that may have been tagged with or have a specific type of summary a particular character in there. Or on a particular calendar, we can have different automations fire depending on what type of meeting it was. But the problem with that is that it requires a little bit of setup to begin with. It requires people to follow a format, follow a structure, remember for those things to be tagged. But what if you could have an AI bot that's automatically created that with an agenda based off of a form field? Well, that's what we're going to do next. All right. So for this one, what we're going to do, we're going to create a form. So we're going to go in here and we're going to say innate in form trigger. It's a built-in form, and honestly, I'm using this instead of Google Forms just to kind of a different way of using a form. Like I said, form is the most common automation on the web. It was probably the first. And what this allows you to do is to really get it all within inside of here. All right. So we're going to have no authentication, and we're just going to kind of this here. And what you see up here is this little test. Now, if I give this a name, so I'm going to say email, and I'm going to give it an email field type so it knows it's requiring that. And I'm going to add another field here for what do you want to talk about? And I'm going to make it a text area. And lastly, now I'm going to just have the person put in a date here. We're not going to check availability as part of this one, but if you're setting up an automation, you also want to use the check. I don't know, I might set it up, we'll see. But right now we're just going to hard code the date so dates of meeting. So here we can also require the different fields. We can add formats, we can add placeholders, but for this and for testing purposes, I really don't really need any of these. Then we have respond. So when the form is submitted or when the workflow finishes. And what I'm going to do is, and one of the other things too is you can actually respond to a webhook node, meaning there's a node in here that allows you to control what actually gets sent back. So that if this was being called from a webhook, which we will see on day 10 from a sidekick or an AI agent, you can specify what that data format looks like. So the next thing I'm going is go in here. So we have field of blah. All right, we have this. All right, so let's go in here. Let's hit play. All right. So we now have this form where I can put in my email, what do I want to talk about, and the day of the meeting. So if I put in my, digital at scale at hotmail.com, it's digital at scale demo, right? That's right. Hotmail. And what do you want to talk about? I want to learn more about your content repurposing services. And I'm going to set this for, let's say, Friday. And when I come in here and I submit this form, I'm going to go here, form has been submitted. Why did it not do that? Form title is required. Do we get in this? All right, save this. There we go. So for whatever reason, on the cloud version, weirdness, there is a bug that keeps this working. So what I've found is just refreshing the page stops it, but save it or you're going to end up losing your information. So go back over here. Let's give this form a title. So meet with me about automation. You can give it a description, book some time with me, and let's chat about your automation needs. All right, so now when we test this stat up, gives me this. Let's go ahead and put this back in here. So digital at scale demo at hotmail.com. I want to learn more about your content up services. All right. And the date of the meeting, let's make it here. And I'm going to submit this. So now we can see as soon as we did that, we saw that in the background. So I'm going to close this out. So now we have our email. What do you want to talk about? The date of the meeting, submitted at. What mode was it in? Was it in testing mode? Was it in regular mode? Whatever. So now we're going to go in, and now that we have this, and what do you want to talk about? We're going to go back over here, and we're going to now translate this information to an agenda, right? Who is it for? What is it doing? All of this good stuff, and a summary. And to do that, we're going to, once again, use an LLM chain. Here, select basic input, and as always, we're going to use define below and create our own prompt. So a user has submitted this form to book a meeting with me. And this is where you can, and these prompts are very basic. I have a whole series on what prompts, and I'm going to have more production ready prompts for our community members. So if you haven't already, sign up at digitalatScale.com. But what thing you can do is kind of give it a little bit of information about the types of meetings. So if the meeting is to talk about our content repurposing services, or no, actually, I'm going to do this a little bit better. So that way we don't have to do this. So your job is to create a detailed or a suggested agenda for the meeting based on the user's request. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to say users request. And once again, put this request, put the brackets around here when you're separating context from anything. So we're going to go here and we're going to say the user's email. We're going to say the dates. One of the nice things here is you see over on the right, it kind of like filling it out based off what I put into this form. And we'll just say user's agenda. Now, this is where you can really get creative too. So for instance, what we want to do is we want to have different codes or different things in the summaries based off of what they want to meet about. So what we're going to do is for this one, we're just going to do different summaries. You could have if statements to do different calendars, things like that, but I'm going to do an AI way to do tagging. So I want you to use, actually, what are they going to be outputting? So your output should be the agenda based on the user's request and following information about my services. So this is where you could say information about my services information. So here I could bring in services information from another automation that maybe gets it from my Google Drive or from Airtable, and we'll see all that when we get into the customer support. But for right now, I'm just going to say, let's say content repurposing services include podcasts to reels, blog posts, and more. And let's say sales services includes virtual sales development reps, and support services include, chat brains on your knowledge. So what here, I'm just giving you like this very basic. Of course, I'd have much more details about what our services are, why they're beneficial, and we'll go over all that later in this series. But for right now, I'm just giving it some basic information so that I can show you how you can create different agendas and also start to categorize them in a way that makes it easier for future processing. So here we're going to go and we're going to say, I want you to create the following items. And I'm going to say meeting summary, meeting agenda. And here I'm going to give it short code dash meeting summary. And I'm going to say short code meeting agenda. Now, what are these short codes? Well, this is going to be replaced with the type of meeting it is. So if I have a content one, I want it to return it as content. If it's sales, I want it to go sales support. So to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually say this. I'm going to say content, sales, and support. By just giving it that area here, we've kind of already started to tag this a little bit. Once again, this was in production. There's a lot more you'd want to do to this. But the short code should be the services key in the services context. Basically what here is I'm just telling it again, hey, for this short code, use this key. The reason it knows this is a key is just, this is where I'm kind of utilizing its understanding of of code, and the fact that it is kind of a repeat engine, right? So content, sales, supports, there's some more prompt engineering we could probably do to this, but we'll see where we're at with this. Please tell which prompts I wrote versus the ones that AI wrote, because mine are full of misspellings. All right, so we have this and it's going to do this. Now I'm going to add something else that we haven't seen yet. And this is return the format in JSON. Now I'm going to give it this little bit here that I'll put in the meeting notes. You can copy and this prompt, but I want to go over this very important concept working with this. And that is that you want to go in and you want to say, we want to actually give it back. By giving it back in a structured format, that allows us to use it in future automations, because our goal with this automation is to actually get this into the invite. And what we're doing is we're taking the information that they put. You notice I didn't say what's your summary and what's your agenda. I'm just saying, hey, what do you want to talk about? Reducing the number of form fields. And we'll get into how you can just reduce it down to 0 here later in this session. But what we want to do is then we want to take that information, parse what we know out of it, and then use that information to create a calendar event. In order to do that, we need to, because if I just give it this, it's going to give it in text. It's going to say, sure, here's the meeting summary. It'll give some explanation. I don't want any of that. I'm just want to say, hey, summary, agenda. And this is where keys, so if you notice here, I use this kind of colon. This is another key. So JSON is something you'll hear me use a lot. And if you're not familiar with it, don't let it scare you if you're not a developer. It's just a key that represents a value. What do I mean by that? Meaning, when we go into our automations and we say your form mode equals test, it could also mean not test or production, right? What we're saying here is that for summary, we want to have, and we're going to give it an example, content. This is another important thing. And we're going to say content repurposing with Acme Inc. And then for agenda, we're going to have in here 1, review their use cases, 2, ask lots of questions, and 3, briefly discuss our automation services. So something like that, some basic agenda. So now we've given it, who it is, or what it's going to be doing. A user has submitted this, a form, let's just say a form, to book a meeting with a user. Your job is to create a suggested agenda for the meeting based on the user's request. Put the user's request in there from what the form is, and then say what your output should be. A little bit about our services. Once again, this could come from your own library. Then you say, I want you to create the following items, meeting summary with a short code, and good. So we now have an example. We put it in JSON format so that we can use this in our future items. But before we do that, even though I gave it an example here, what I want to do is go into this, which is require specific output format. So I'm also telling it inside of the code, inside of the API call, when I communicate with it, what format I want to be in. And if you notice, so this one only had one model. This one, I'm still going to hook up the model, and I'm going to choose OpenAI. And for this, you have to use one of the newer models. You can't use one of the older ones. I don't recommend using the older ones anyway. Like I said, 4.0 mini will work just fine for this case. And here, I'm going to choose what's called an output parser. And here, I'm going to say I want a structured output parser. And once again, I just say summary, agenda, and I'm just going to have strings here. Now I can put in my one. So why are we doing it in both places? Honestly, there's now, these haven't been updated. This is another reason why you want to have your own version. I have a local version that actually makes it so you get structured output at the same time. I've used lots of different techniques. Sometimes this is one of the biggest early pieces of why automations would fail, is that it wouldn't return structured output. I've used prompting techniques like return it in JSON or I will get fired. But really, at the end of the day, what really matters is this: return the format in JSON. You do have to put that in the system prompt for it to do it. Now, what I can do here is I can test this step based off here. So we're going to go ahead and hit test step. Great. Look at this. So we have our summary, content repurposing with Acme, and the agenda. It actually gave me the exact output that I had in there. So we're going to go in here. There's some more prompting we could do, but that can kind of get us to where we want to go, which is actually creating the event in Gmail. So let's go here, click on the plus, and go and hit Gmail. So we go here to Gmail, or calendar. We go to Google Calendar, and here we're going to choose create an event. And this, all we have to do is select the calendar. So in this case, we're going to say digital at scale. And in this case, I'm going to just choose the date that the user put in. And then we're also going to put the date and time that they put in. We're going to go over that here in just a minute. And we're going to add the fields. So we're going to add the attendees. So in this case, we're going to add the email of the person. We're going to add myself. I'm just going to add Brad at lastrev.com. So my add attendee. Or no, yeah, we'll just have those two. That way it's that and that person plus, I guess, well, I guess myself. I'm going to put my digital at scale demo@gmail.com. So it puts the Hotmail and the Gmail, the two different ones on that. And then we're also going to add a field for the summary. And this is going to use the summary that we had output from our AI. Now we're also going to use the description, which we're going to put this agenda in. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to test this step, and I have a feeling it's going to fail, and I'll tell you why here in a minute. Oh, looks like it didn't. So let's see what it actually put on the calendar. Here we go. It gave me one. So what this did is, that's interesting. So because I gave it the same date and same time, it just put it as a day-long event. It didn't choose all day. But notice here, it just chose that time. So how do we actually work with dates in N8N and in other systems? Well, that's where there is a little bit of, I want to say code, but we have to look at their documentation just a little bit here. So there's a few things that they do provide this thing called Luxon. And what this does is it allows you to convert dates to date and time. So for instance, what I can do is I can actually first, and what I'm going to have to do is convert this into a date. So new date. And I'll add all of these things into it. And I'm going to go here and put quotes around the quotes. Let me look at one. We're going to use this date time from format. option because that is the format that we are getting it into. And I'll go over formatting here in just a minute. It's important to end this. So now what we have here is it's taken our date that we've put in here, and in this case it is just 2019, and we've given it, hey, this is the format that it's going to be in. So Unix date formats, there's a list of them. So when you see YY, M's, D's, this is something, although if you ever want to just know, for instance, like what, give me a date format for that, or for in Unix that is this type, and 21, 2024, right? And you can go in here and get an error. All right. Let's go over to, let's try that again. I don't think that's one of my own personal ones I don't think was set up and tested. Got it, it's not using that. What about, and you can actually even just give it this Luxon format. Or what is the format to create Jan 21, 2024? So it's actually creating that, but it's also giving us this to format. There we go. So you can get AI to just tell you what those formats are, so you don't have to learn it. But in this case, what we need to see is what the format is here. So we have year, month, and day, which is a little bit different than what we have here. So we're going to choose, first off, we need to change the format. So year, or let's just say year, month, day. And we're going to just quickly test this before putting it over. So 2024, 01, 21. Actually, I think, there we go. So capitalization does matter. So as you can see here, this is 01, 21, 24. Now, this is where you want to transfer this. So what we have here is an actual date, and what we're going to do, and what we can do is, so this is a string here, and this is a new date, add 1 hour. So that's the next thing that we have to do. So this is going to give us our start date, and so we could probably add time to the form, but for this case, it's going to be a midnight to 1, so that we can go on to the next use case, which will be, so right now we have this plugged in there, and then we're going to save. So I was doing that in the wrong area. All right. So one thing I don't like about N8N is for forms, I have to literally, because I went out there, go in and do this again. So let's go and test it out. So once again, I'm going to actually, in this case, I'm going to actually add the time. So let's go in here to edit this, stop listening, date, formatted as, is there a way to do time? No, there isn't. Well, normally we'd be sending the time in from something else. So for this case, we're just going to have this. All right, so no time right now. So Brad, let's say digital at scale demo at Gmail, or sorry, hotmail.com. All right, I want information about how I can increase my leads and close more deals. So this is another important thing. So I never mentioned sales or anything like this. So I'm going to see what it actually categorizes this within our prompt. So I'm going to say this is for tomorrow, and I'm going to submit the form. So this is created this. I now have this bit in here, and I don't have to do anything to adjust this, I believe. We should be good to go. So now we're going to test this step as well. Cool, so it categorized it correctly. We have sales services included virtual sales development reps. And as you can see here, it gave us an agenda. So now we're gonna take this information. Now we're gonna take this and create for the attendees, we're going to do that attendee. And then for this one, we're going to remove this because this is the date that we put in there just normally, and we want to replace this with the date that is in here. Now you can see it's taken 1:30. I don't know why this says January 30th. Years, month, date. It says capital M, but when I put a capital M in there, another thing that I love that oh, there we go. All right. So once again, the capitalization matters. So when I put 10, it put it as January. When I put it as capital M, I don't know. I have to look more into that. But there's our date. There it is. So now if we want to get in dates from today, we can simply just, this to get the dates. So now, how do you add this to it, right? Because you want to be able to get the dates, get the times, things like that. So we're going to add an hour to this so we can actually schedule something for that hour based off of the dates, ideally the time, but that form doesn't do it. We could have a different form that allows them to select the time. But for this case, we're going to do this. So right here, we have, there's some documentation on how you can do this. It gets a little involved. So here we go. So basically, we'll want to copy something that looks like this. And I'll go over what each of you. So I'll put it right below it so you can see the end time versus the time. So now we're going to take this and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to replace this hard-coded date with, all right. And we're going to say we want to plus actually hours. And this is where you could add multiple things if you wanted. So great. Let's do 6-hour meeting. So now we have our start date and we have our end date, just so you can see that. So midnight to 6 a.m. That's when all the fun stuff happens. So we have that. So we're going to put this for our end date. So now we have a start and an end date. So now when it comes in and I submit this form, it should create this event on my calendar on the date that I say from midnight to 6. Now, of course, these are parameters that you can play with to make it suit your own. But this is really just to give you the basic building blocks to be able to build off of that. So what we're going to do here is I'm just going to test this workflow again. And I'm going to say digital at scale or demo at hotmail.com. It's so funny to have a Hotmail. I haven't had a Hotmail in like years. What do you want to talk about? I want to reduce my support tickets and increase my help center docs. And we're going to do a date of, let's say, Wednesday, and we're going to submit this form. So as we can see here, I already finished. We have here, gone there, and it's submitted this and created the event. So now if I go over to my calendar, I look here, and I have this. Looks like the time didn't get sent in there. I have to debug that a little bit more, but as you can see, we're starting to get events put on here. And it's starting to, more important, categorize it and give us these agendas. So this just helps us to be able to create much more standardized and dynamic meeting agendas. And then also, too, we do is when someone books a meeting, then we know what they want to talk about. We know, what content we want to send them that might help them prepare for the meeting, and a lot of other things too, to really make the most. And then the last one we're going to go over today is how to schedule automations when meetings end. So you know who you're meeting with, agenda. And then, we have all these tools that create transcripts like Zoom and things like that. But what if you could actually just at the end of the meeting have email just ready for you, ready to go? Well, I'm going to do a basic version of that next. All right. So how do we do this in? Well, basically, what we're going to do is we are going to create another trigger. And in this case, we're going to add a calendar, and we have this right up here. So we have these different triggers. So this is how you can start using your calendar too to kick off other automations. One thing I have is I have a special type of calendar event that I kick it off, and when I put it on there, I know that certain things are going to happen with certain at certain times. Great for scheduling content, for doing lots of other things on a schedule. But one of the things that I like too is to kick off events after an event has happened. So I have a sales presentation meeting and I want to create a personalized sales presentation based off our Zoom transcript, based off of our Canva template. Already done within a few minutes after our meetings. And these are just some of the ways that you can just, your prospects, your clients, even better. So we're going to choose the on event ended one. So right here, it's going to poll. So what this means is it's not going to be exactly when it ends, but every minute it's going to poll. And what polling means is it just every minute it goes and it checks, is there an event that's done? In this case, I'm going to select the one that I want. So in this case, I'm going to choose this. I'm going to say on when the event ends, and we have one here. So which one did this actually pull up? Well, this pulled up the support chatbots with Acme. Not sure why it pulled that one up. I think it's just getting the latest one for testing. That's what it is. Yes, this is getting just the most latest one because you wouldn't have to schedule an event, wait for it to end, and then to test it, right? It's just going to get the latest one for your own testing. So what do we want to do when this event ends? So we're going to pull this down here. And what we're going to want to do is, once again, create the basic LLM chain. We're going to choose the prompt from below. And we're going to choose this one, expression. And here we're going to say a meeting just ended with the following participants and agenda. Once again, we could get very detailed in this prompt. This is why owning your own is very important, because this is really where you can really save a ton of time. So for instance, in my own businesses, I have a combination of sales meetings that I attend. I have a combination of one-on-ones. I have a combination of discovery meetings when I kick a project off, just gathering information about what we're doing. I have with the use cases. And all of those require different analysis from that. Like I said, this really becomes powerful. We're just going to give it our basic agenda just to show that it's working. But when we get into connecting this to your Teams or your Zoom later in this course, you're going to see how having that transcript and having this process really look at your different, all the different needs, all the different pieces, all the different action items, follow-up things that were committed to, things that were talked about, but maybe tabled. Everyone's memory is a little fuzzy always, usually like, oh, we did talk about that, but we agreed to table that, not go forward with it. So these are all things that this can really help get that email. And there's even entire products that do just this. So one of the other reasons of creating your own automation system is you get to reduce your SaaS cost a lot. So what we're going to do here, meeting just ended with the following participants and agenda. So we're going to say meeting info, put our brackets around it, and we're going to say here is the summary, here is the description, and we're going to say here was the attendees. All right. Once again, we're just throwing this in there. I would do more in prompting. I would say create a follow-up thank you email that recaps the discussion. And this is where you can have your transcript. We don't have one right now, but you could put this in here and automate it. And we'll go over that here later. But for this right here, I'm just going to say, hey, and it's just going to hallucinate a bunch for the agenda. Now, once again, the purpose of this and today and this whole week is to just set up the basic building blocks that we'll then build and begin to optimize throughout this course. All right. Now we have this. Let's go ahead and test this step. Oh, model subnode, forgot. I wish they would just allow the ability to put the model in there. So you got to choose your AI model in this case, and I got to change it to 4.0 mini. So we go here, and let's go ahead and do that again. Great. So now we have this once again. Hey, here's this. Dear team, hope this finds you well. Blah, here's a basic email for us to look at. Now, one of the things that we want to do, though, is that we also have the subject and the message in there. If you remember from yesterday, we hard-coded a subject, but we want this subject to be personalized. So we're going to use the new trick that we learned with the structured output parser. And we're going to go in here and we're going to say requires a specific output. And this time we are just going to give it just the subject, subject, and body. And this is one of the nice things, you can just use your test content as mini prompts for these. So the thank you message body. Right? Like you can actually just tell it when you're giving it examples what you want in there to help reduce the prompting. So what we're going to go do here, and then we're just going to do this return your respond in JSON format. You're going to learn that word JSON. Just memorize that. And when we do that and we say test step, now it's going to go through here. Now we have the subject and we have our body, making it a lot easier to do what we're going to do next, which is send it to email. So we can just either, if you remember from yesterday, I'm not going to go over this, but yesterday we learned how to create those drafts. Now you can have it happen automatically with the calendar events. So we're going to say Gmail again. And we're going to search for create a draft. And in this case, we're going to create, and the subject, we're just going to pull in the subject here. We're going to pull in the body, and we're going to pull in the to email, and we're going to get that from the attendee. And now we're going to test this step. And now it says we have a draft. And if I go in here to draft, thank you for attending, or thank you for the productive meeting. Thank you for all the insightful discussion during our recent meeting. And now I can come in here. It's already been set up. It has who it's to. It has the subject already here. It can be personalized even. It can then write this email. And when you start putting, the transcript, when you start putting your own past emails of how you've written them before, this first draft becomes better. And we're only on day 7, where I just realized that's off on this thing. We're only on day 7. We got 60 days to go. So as you can see, all of these automations are going to be building off of each other. What we do in these automations can be used across the board. So with that, that's our goals. So today what we did is we created an automation that allows you to summarize your week, one that can create agendas and summaries and really standardize your calendar of invites. And we showed how you can create follow-up email messages in your draft folder right after an event has ended. All right, so before we go in, so let's see if there's any questions in the chat. Oh, there are some questions. Can the calendar automations handle complex scheduling conflicts? Yes, actually. So one of the ways that I use it, we didn't go into it today because, the goal of this is to try to keep them under about an hour to an hour and a half. To make them really digestible. And really when you get it, there's a lot of different things that you can do with this. You can have them email each other. You can set up agents that just automatically email when this person are here during these days. Or when you have an inbound email coming in that says, hey, when's your team available? It can quickly go and check and find who are they asking about. It can parse that information out from the email. And really just manage that conversation for you in some of these more advanced ones. So 53 days to go, but who's counting? Right? Exactly. I definitely am, for sure. What happens? Oh, here's a good question. What happens if there's an error or there's inaccurate automation fails? This is a good, we haven't really got into error checking and error handling about your automations. Not everything works exactly right. That's why I'm doing this live, is because I've watched so many tutorials of people that, oh, just do this and this, and halfway through you run into an issue that they probably ran into too, but they wanted to make the video all slick and nice. And really the learning of how did you get over this is really where you're at. And you saw some places where I just, you know what, I'll figure that out a little bit later, but let's make progress here. And you have to make your decisions when debugging these. What's your level of error, or what's your level of risk of this automation? If it's absolutely mission critical that this gets put on your calendar, don't use one of these automations. Or really fine tune it and really make it so that you have a backup system, so that not only does it put it on the calendar, but you're getting an email, you're getting something else to know that this is happening. And we'll go over visibility and things like that. Hey, this agenda was a little off. Why was it? Well, maybe they put something in there that they shouldn't have or something. So there'll be some ways, because errors can happen. Either it just didn't run, or it could just be that it just gave a bad response. And we'll go over throughout this course how to do all of those. Yes. So the next question is, can an Answer AI Sidekick integrate with the other calendar apps? So on day 10, building a basic assistant. So yesterday we automated the email. Tomorrow we're automating, or today we automated your calendar. Tomorrow we're going to be talking about task management, and we have a cool demo of taking a picture of handwritten or a whiteboard and creating tasks from that. And then also how you can look at your tasks and start to schedule them out based off when you want to work with them using the calendar automation. Then we're going to talk about a little bit about file management, because a lot of what we're doing here around automating your email, your calendar, and your task management is going to require more context about yourself. I mentioned today having the transcripts would be very helpful. Having more information about your services. I just hard-coded those. So how can we get that information in there as well, so that then you have a basic assistant that can, summarize your daily emails, let you know what your calendar looks like, put events on your calendar with specific items, can help you create to-do lists, help you to organize all of your files. And that's just after the end of week 1 or 2. So after that, we'd have 50 more days to go. So once again, thank you for everyone that attended. I really appreciate all the feedback, all the questions. I really appreciate you spending your time with me. And tomorrow we'll be going over task management. If you found this content valuable, I would really appreciate it if you shared it with your coworkers or with other AI and automation enthusiasts. But until then, I really appreciate it, and have a great day. Bye.